Hey, good morning and happy whatever the hell day it is. I think it's Thursday. I don't remember anymore because of COVID and being a mom at the same time does a number on your brain. Welcome to a special coffee talk conversation. I'm here with Dr. Helene Darmanin. Good morning, Helene.
Good morning.
Helene's recovering from the cold that is just blazing through the entire East Coast or planet, as far as I'm concerned, the one that isn't COVID, but makes you think, like, is this COVID? And then you get 11 tests and you're like, no, it's just a normal cold that sucks. So thanks for coming in today, Helene.
Oh, my pleasure.
So for those of you who don't know, Helene is a pelvic floor and orthopedic physical therapist. She owns her own physical therapy business, Mama Bear Physical Therapy, right there on the shirt. And she's also the resident exercise physical therapy coach for the Strong as a Mother coaching program. We are going to the very end of the show, so definitely stick around. Have a big announcement regarding Strong as a Mother coaching and the enrollment, so definitely stick around for that. So in these coffee talk episodes, we go into what it means to live a sustainable, healthy life as moms for ourselves, in the home, and the community. And today we're talking about sustainable health and fitness for ourselves. So let's get right into it. If you have questions along the way, we are streaming live and we're in the group. So feel free to drop the questions. If we see them, we will get right to them. That's what we're here for. If you're watching the replay, please drop the questions too, or send us a message and we will still find our way to you. So Helene, today we're talking about something really cool. And I say that every time, but this is what we do. This is our wheelhouse.
This is my bread and butter.
Yeah. If I saw a post once that was like, what is one thing you could, like, without preparation at all, stand on a podium and talk about for a half an hour? And I feel like pelvic floor postpartum exercise is your thing there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it like professionally was, and then I had my own kid and I experienced it personally, and then I feel like I got even better as a professional. And there's talking about postpartum.
I feel like there's a different kind of knowledge and wisdom you acquire whenever you experience childbirth yourself. It's not just anecdotal. It's not just my client experienced this. You and I went through this. We went through feeling like our body was broken, like we didn't have any help. We didn't have the right guidance. So we laced up our shoelaces, put on our sports bra, and figured it out ourselves. So.
Yeah. Or like, a nursing bra and then a sports bra and then a...
And then we get scissors to cut it off because we can't even get it over our heads anymore.
Yep.
So today I wanted to touch on 3 particular exercises or kinds of exercises that I feel and that you feel women who are in postpartum bodies, whether it's 6-month postpartum, whether it's 16 years postpartum, should be doing no matter what. This is the holiday season has already started, whether we wanted to or not, but I'm already getting retargeted, targeted, just bombarded with Peloton, Bowflex, Nordic Track, all the exercise stuff. And I know what it's like to see these ads and feel like, maybe I do need a booty band. Maybe I do need the Brazilian.
Maybe if I just get that one more thing, that will keep me exercising, or give me the 6-pack I really want, or like get rid of my like saggy mom butt.
Yeah. And
we've all been there.
We've all been there. And we're still, sometimes we are still there because that's exactly what advertising does, right? A lot of you watch Mad Men, like it's their job to get into the emotional points into the consumer so that they want to buy your thing. And that's what, unfortunately, the commercial fitness industry is about. It's saying, even though you didn't think about this before, you do need a $2,000 treadmill and a $50 subscription for the rest of your life. And I'm not knocking any of them. If it works for you, that's fantastic. But what I don't love is whenever people buy a $2,000 treadmill and then it just turns into a clothes rack, which it happens, right? It's happened to me. So 3 things that moms should focus on, regardless of what equipment they have. Let's talk about why. Why do you think this is an important conversation to have as far as doing the right exercises in the first place?
Yeah. So I think exercise is powerful for so many reasons throughout life, right? But particularly in the postpartum period, at least my experience and the experience of a lot of my clients is is that your body is all of a sudden not your own, right? Like you spend 10 months as hosting a fetus, right? Like where it takes over and you have to watch what you eat and what you drink and how you move and la 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 la. And you're always at the doctor. And then you go through birth and like even in the best case scenario, that's a crazy experience. And your body becomes something entirely different. You know, we're used to thinking about like, did I eat enough vegetables? Have I gotten my like 30 minutes of aerobic exercise? And then all of a sudden your body is like squeezing a person out of it. And then and then postpartum, you know, maybe you're nursing. Now your body's a food source. But even if you're not, it's just a tremendous time where you have a completely different relationship with your body. And for me, and what I help folks with often is exercise can be a way to reconnect with your body, kind of find your new normal. And I know for me, it felt like something I could do that was just for myself. That was kind of back to not back to the old me, because I'm not about like that snap back, go back, like, but finding the new me and like re-inhabiting my body, and having my body be just for me for a few minutes. And then on the like practical, like pragmatic, like I wanted to be able to get down on the floor for tummy time and then be able to get back up off the floor, like, you know, in minimal amount of time with a minimal amount of pain. So that is, those are some things, some reasons that I think exercise is just absolutely vital in this period. And I know it is such a hard time to find time for yourself. There's always like, oh, the baby's napping, now I can unload the dishwasher and, you know, do the laundry and prepare dinner and, you know, finally sit down and drink up maybe a hot cup of coffee instead of one that like was hot 2 hours ago, you know. I'm like, so I know that it's really hard to find time. And that's why one of the things I also work on with folks, and I know that Connie does this too, like we both work with folks on this, is when to find time and how to make it part of a routine so that every day it's not like, oh crap, when am I going to find time today? So having it be like, as soon as the baby goes down for a nap, you spend 5 to 10 minutes. As soon as the baby goes down to bed, you spend 5 minutes just doing a little bit of something for yourself. Or, you know, if you're later in the postpartum period, because, you know, I'm glad you brought it up, like postpartum is forever. So if you're later in the postpartum period, you know, maybe it's after the kids leave for school, after like drop off every day before you start your emails and this, that, and the other thing, it's 5 minutes for yourself for exercise. And that can do so much for what you're able to do for yourself and then also as a parent.
I agree. Yeah, you said so much really helpful stuff in it, and I'm glad that you said it too, because we're clearly coaches that work together because we're on the same page about things,
Yeah.
and not just to feel like we have ownership over our bodies, because that was something that was really hard for me, and probably my least favorite part of pregnancy was not feeling like I was in control of my body. Is that we're really dealt a shitty hand as women, because after we have our babies, it's not long until we're in perimenopause and the hormones take over again. So any kind of habit that we can develop around the right kind of exercise, just enough of the right kind of exercise, is going to set us up for an easier next phase of our lives, right? Because once perimenopause kicks in, the hormones start shifting. And then into menopause, we, you know, our cycle changes, our cycle goes away entirely. And we're at a higher risk for osteoporosis and osteopenia.
Absolutely.
So, you know, exercise, instead of the culturally common treating it as like punishment for food that you ate or things that you didn't do, treating it more as preventative health and an insurance policy for setting yourself up for success. So let's start at the bare at the bare minimum, at the absolute starting point with the first kind of exercise that we should be doing for ourselves. Helene, what's number one on the list?
So if you've ever heard me talk before, you know what I'm going to say. It's breathing. So you may not think of breathing as an exercise, but actually, in order to breathe, our pelvic floor and our diaphragm have to work together. As we inhale, the diaphragm descends, so does the pelvic floor. Otherwise, your guts would get squished every time. And then as you exhale, they both come back to this shape. But additionally, it's happening in more than 360 degrees because it's a sphere, but however many degrees this is. But abs and lower back too are also working to expand as you inhale, and then they relax as they exhale. So you're moving all of those really vital muscles through a full range of motion in such a nice, gentle way. And deep breathing has so many other benefits, like decreasing anxiety and stress, which, none of us have as mothers, of course not. And helping you sleep better. And so, but the big thing is that we want to make sure we're doing diaphragmatic breathing, because we think like, oh, I'm breathing, so I'm using my diaphragm. But a lot of the times when we're tired, exhausted, stressed out, you'll notice that we breathe from up here. We use our pec muscles and our neck muscles. And it's really dramatic sounding now because of my cold. That's great. But we want to be getting breaths that fill especially the bottom of our rib cage. We want to expand that 360 degrees, this time really 360 degrees. So big inhale. And you should feel almost like you have gills in the side and in the back. Like those are the harder areas to fill. So more so. And more so than, sometimes yoga breathing is more that belly breath, which there's nothing wrong with that. But for this purpose that I'm talking about, we want to get the sides and the back of the ribs involved. And that means we're using our whole diaphragm, and that means we're moving our pelvic floor. So I love that, because you can do that. You can do that while you're holding a baby. You could do that while you're nursing a baby. You could do that, again, when you sit down at your desk before you start answering emails, 5 deep breaths, and it will make you more centered, but it'll also get those abs and pelvic floor moving through a nice full range of motion and relaxing. A lot of times, especially if you had a cesarean birth, the pelvic floor can remain kind of tight after birth, rather than like, I know the kind of like common wisdom is that it's just like loose and flapping around and then you just need to kegel. But actually it can remain kind of tight, and that can cause as many, if not more, problems than having it be loose. So deep breaths help to reset it and bring it to like a nice, normal, calm resting tone.
Yeah, and thinking, the thing that came to my mind when we were talking about shallow breathing and the idea of integrating deep diaphragmatic breaths into your day is that it's kind of like a body check or a reminder that like we're hanging out like this, or we're hanging out breastfeeding,
Yes.
or we're just like hunched over dealing with the kids, to bring the shoulders back, expand the chest, and just allow that space. And anybody who's been pregnant, especially towards the end, has felt that shallow breathing. It's hard to take deep breaths because your diaphragm's way up here now. So
and there's literally something in the way, like your womb with a fetus in it is in the way.
Yeah. And is it, I mean, that means it's harder to exercise, which means, with muscles, you use it or you lose it. So baby's born, your body's there, your diaphragm's like, that's what's flapping, because it's super weak and you haven't used it for a long time. You haven't been able to expand.
And it's lengthened because it's flattened and lengthened. So it actually, the deep breathing can help bring, if you had, like, I know my ribs were enormous after they were like way splayed out here after I gave birth. None of my winter jackets fit that year. So this can also help kind of reestablish that normal length of the diaphragm.
I measured my back to my own body progress by what coats would zip up. Because I too was like, why?
Coats are the worst.
This. Like,
they're really the worst. Between the ribs out here and then the nursing boobs, I couldn't get into any coats. Nope.
So a good cue that I like whenever I'm cueing deep breaths is you should feel like you're stretching your bra strap. You should feel it stretching, expanding. It shouldn't feel constricted. So if it does feel constricted, like your bra is preventing you from breathing, that's permission to go bra shopping for me.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be that fully, that corset kind of restriction. But just before we move on to the next one, let's explain for anybody who's watching who doesn't quite know, like, what is the diaphragm? Because it's different than vaginal diaphragms. That's something completely different. And what's its purpose?
Absolutely. I'm going to get my friend the skeleton here. Okay.
Yes, I was.
I want to get a diaphragm model. Oh, this is a different skeleton, friend. I also have my pelvis, but
all right, Elvis.
This is just my normal. This is just a normal skeleton. So the diaphragm sits at the very bottom of the ribs. It kind of traces the shape, and it's all the way to the back, all the way to the front. It actually has different slips of muscle. It is a muscle, and so it acts when you inhale. It contracts, which pulls it downward and flattens it here. And what that does is it creates negative pressure in the lungs, which allows air to come in. And then as you exhale, it causes the inhale and exhale as it relaxes back up into that dome shape. And then because there's more pressure there, the air comes out of those lungs. So, and it's a muscle, which is really nice because that means we can train it. But that also means that, like, for instance, because we often breathe in if we do deep breathing, a lot of times we use the front. It means the muscles in the back are often not as well trained. So you might find it more difficult to expand into the back of the bra strap, as Connie gave us that lovely cue. And those are the very basics of the diaphragm.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you talked about it. I remember messing up a quiz because we were on the quiz. It was like, when you're inhaling, it's this kind of pressure. When you're exhaling, it's that kind of pressure. And I mixed up negative and positive. But yeah, it's important to understand that, like, that's a muscle and we can work it. And it's to integrate this into your exercise program. It's not just as something to put into your workouts necessarily, but just to have a reminder that this is a muscle. It's an important one to have and to train. Well, obviously everybody has it, but to take a few moments each day. Maybe it's whenever you're having your coffee, to pair it with, all right, I'm going to take some deep breaths and work this muscle a little bit, because you're not going to break a sweat doing diaphragmatic breathing. But it is so beneficial. Obviously, we're talking about mood regulation, de-stress. When you take a deep breath when you're crying.
Yeah, it literally has an effect on your nervous system. It switches you from your fight or flight nervous system to your rest and digest nervous system to take a deep breath. There's a nerve that actually runs through the diaphragm that gets stimulated and tells the body, like, okay, we can calm down now, we can digest. Sorry.
Coughing's a completely different diaphragmatic exercise. Erica, our nutritionist, is listening, and she commented that breathing is really difficult with her baby taking up so much space. So she's in the middle of this right now, experiencing in real time. But next let's move on. So the next one I want to talk about is, it's my least favorite word in the world because it is overused and misunderstood so greatly. But I want to talk about core exercises and what the hell core actually means and why it should be integrated in the right way for postpartum moms. And moms, is postpartum moms redundant, do you think?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Anyways.
Yeah. Core. So in PT school, we actually talk about 3 cores in the body rather than like the core. Well, that was nice and dramatic.
That was nice.
Thank you. We talk about the shoulders actually being 1 core, because the shoulder complex is very, very complicated. And if it's not moving well, if your shoulder blades are kind of stuck on your back and they don't have a nice mobility and the arms don't move nicely, then that can have a lot of impact down the chain, up the chain, into the neck, into the lower back, right? And then we have what we classically think of as the core, excuse me, which you could talk about that one. Why don't you talk about the abs?
take a breather, grab a cough drop if you need it, Helene. So with the actual core that is classic, what we're talking about, we have different abdominal muscles that go diagonally across our body and up and down. So these all work together like a corset that go from the front of our body to the back and the spine. So that's the ones that people want to go in and they want to work their core and you know, get stronger. But as Helene started talking already about, if you don't have strength up here, you can't hold a plank to build the strength here, right? So moving on, there's a third core, and it sounds like Helene is ready to explain it.
Yes, hopefully. And the third core that we talk about are the hips. So if the hips have, you know, so here's my pelvis. So here's your hip socket right here in the pelvis. And you can imagine that if there's like a lot of motion going on here, that stress can translate to the lower back right here and into the abs that are right here. So you have your groin muscles or the inner thigh muscles actually attached inside the pubic bone here. So it's all related. And if those muscles are too tight or not quite pulling their load, then that's going to affect the abs, the lower back. And the same thing that we were talking about with the shoulders. If the shoulders are too tight, not pulling their load, then that can have its effect down here. So we want to look from the bottom up, from the top down. And I would even put forth that there's a fourth core, which is your ankles, which is potentially a controversial statement.
We'll go into that one in a bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it all has to work together in order for us to move efficiently. And moving efficiently puts less stress on our joints and our muscles and keeps us moving for longer.
Yeah. So let's think about that in a practical example. Anyone who's done a plank as like, all right, I'm going to start exercising. Pinterest tells me to hold a plank for 30 seconds. You were talking about how your core includes your hips a bit. If those muscles in the hips are pulling in one direction or another too much because they're too tight, they're going to put extra tension on your lower back and cause that extra curve in your spine. And we're trying to
make it harder for your abs.
It's harder for your abs. You're going to walk out of that with low back pain. And then what's going to go on in your head? Oh, I'm too weak. Oh, I'm going in, I'm pain. This hurts. I suck. I can't do these. Like all the negative things that we tell ourselves are going to be reinforced by this belief that we can't do exercise because we weren't addressing the whole body as an entire unit. But it was just because maybe that plank wasn't the best first exercise to start with, because we got to look at, I think, like I usually think about the core as from the knees to the shoulders, which is almost everything that we're talking about here. I'm interested in hearing more about your ankle theory, but exercises. What should we be integrating into a healthy core exercise program?
So my number one favorite core exercise is called a primal push-up, and I'll demonstrate. So you're on hands and knees and your toes are tucked under. And then as you do a big exhale, you float the knees just an inch or two and then lower down. That's it. That's the whole exercise. And you'll be surprised at how challenging that is. And really, we want to not lift any higher than an inch or two, because we're letting the thighs just kind of be weight there. But we get a little bit of thigh muscles and a little bit of glutes in that. Lots of abs, all the abs that Connie was talking about, the up and down, the diagonals, the wraparound, and then shoulders are having to push the ground away. We get all of that at the same time. Plus, by training that contraction with an exhale, we're helping the body figure out how to handle pressure in the abdominal area. So often, if the body can't handle pressure in the abdominal area, that's where we start to see a worsening of diastasis recti, a leaking of urine. Those are all situations where there's extra pressure here. The body doesn't quite know how to respond. So either it pushes out into the abdominal wall or it pushes down into the pelvic floor. And then you get prolapse, leaking urine, and trouble like that, or diastasis recti if it's going outward.
Right.
Worsening, I'd say. Diastasis recti comes from pregnancy, but then it can be perpetuated if we don't manage pressure well. So I love that by training the body to kind of exhale as it contracts in that position, we get that benefit also.
Yeah. And I thought the breathing, I was imagining in my head like a balloon, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, you're expanding the diaphragm with your breath in. And then as you were exhaling, that balloon shrank a bit and created that stabilization in your midsection that was way better protected than going into plank position, where it's like planks are my least favorite thing on the planet if you haven't figured it out. Like I'm all legs, so it's a pain in the ass no matter how I try it. So the way you were doing it, you're like you said, engaging the shoulders. It was engaging the deep diaphragmatic breathing and those muscles in the core that we want to be strengthening and building. But with the bent knees, shortening the lever that is on the lower body, you were protecting that lower back area and being way more gentle in the hip area, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites.
I really like that. I'm gonna start throwing those into my client workouts. Sorry guys, or you're welcome, depending. So Brianne
there's all types of fun progressions. Brianne.
Yeah, Brianne commented that her hips are a mess, capital M, and this is all making sense. Yeah, you think that that it's just a matter of like doing more lunges or going for more runs is going to solve the problem, but running doesn't loosen up the body. I'll tell you firsthand, it just makes things harder. So doing these proper exercises where we're connecting connecting the body in this really intelligent way. And this is one of my favorite things that happens in the body, is why you can actually go from doing 0 push-ups when you start with a trainer to doing like 15 push-ups within the matter of a month. Muscles don't grow that fast, but what does grow is the neural pathways and the connections between those muscles in your brain. So your brain doesn't know that your body can move in certain ways until you tell it, until you try it. And then as you repeat it and as you continue doing this, like in an exercise program, your body's going to be like, oh, this is a thing we need to do. Okay. So it connects the neurons in your leg muscles, your glutes, your lungs, your chest, your shoulders to your brain. So it starts to create these connections. It's so cool. I'm nerding out really hard right now because this is the stuff I really like talking about.
And this is why we get along so well, because that's like one of my most favorite things to talk about. It's like first 6 to 8 weeks of any strengthening program is all neural changes. It's all neuromuscular changes
in the brain.
The body's figuring out how to efficiently recruit those muscles. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. And the coaches know exactly what they're doing. So the third one, let's get to the third one. What is your number 3 top exercise that mom should be doing and why?
Yeah, so this is my most commonly prescribed exercise probably. And this is where my 4th core comes into play. So you're going to see only my legs for a second, but if I'm pushing a stroller, going for a walk, carrying a baby carrier, or just taking a walk, every step I take is this motion, right? Pushing off from the back leg. That strength is mostly from your calves, right? Same thing if you're going running. Lots of power coming from calves. Lots and lots and lots of power. And if we sit most of the day and then, we do our exercises, that's awesome. We do usually, some abs, some squats, this kind of thing. Great. But oftentimes we forget our calves. And then every step you take, if that power is not coming from your calf here, then you're going to have to take it from somewhere else. And usually we take it from here, from the hip. The upper leg works to then bring the leg around. I exaggerate because no one's going around like this for the most part, but
some days it feels like I
am. But that can put then a lot of stress on the pelvic floor, the hips, the lower back. Then that translates to stress on the upper back, the shoulders, the neck. So actually one of the most, and usually like, at least most folks, myself included, right by the end of the 3rd trimester, you're like, forget it. I'm like, I'm a whale. I'm laying down. That's it. Then you give birth and they're like, oh, rest for 6 weeks. So your calves haven't seen any action. So heel raises are my like number one exercise that I give to most folks. So really simply, you want to come hold on to something because you don't want balance to be part of the equation, and then come up on making sure you have weight through your big toes. So it's really tempting to kind of come here, especially if your calves have been out of action for a while. Make sure you have weight through your big toes, and then you're going to come just as high as you can. There's no requirement for how high you go. And if you can do those really easily, then switch to doing it one leg at a time. Just stand on one leg and hold on and do 1 foot at a time. If you're planning on going back to a running program, my goal for you is to be able to do 30 in a row on one leg at a time. And that's like a really nice metric to have. If you're walking, 20 in a row. Now, there's some research that shows us that 26 is the benchmark. And like, if you're able to do 26 single leg heel raises, you're less likely to have pain or injury. So that's what we consider normal, whatever that means.
But God, I love data and studies and large quantities of information that give us numbers like 26.
I know, 26, not 25.
So 20. This is every mom who's listening who commuted into the city knows exactly what's going on here, because you used to schlep up the subway stairs, down the subway stairs, however many miles to your job until lockdown happened. And then it didn't anymore. And then maybe you went back, or maybe you're like, I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to, I don't know, climb this set of stairs. And you're like, what the hell happened? Where did why am I out of breath at the top of the stairs? It's because you were used to this kind of movement, and your calves were actually something you were working regularly, but it stopped. And not only are they like not the most sexy attribute on the typical female body that like we actually think about, but we don't look at them. And if you don't see it, you're not going to give it a second thought. You know, we can see our belly when we're looking down at our feet. Well, if we can see our feet, but you can see your belly, you can see your arms, and the things that are most recognizable. You see your face in the mirror. Those are the things you pay attention to. So your calves at the bottom back of you don't see them, so you don't think about them. But you're talking about how integral this is, and I couldn't agree more, because we just had 6 moms run their first 5K either ever or in however many months, and their starting point was walking for 30 minutes, walking for 20 minutes, starting to do these movements, talking to you, and you're saying, give me 26 heel raises, and they're like, okay, and then they do them and they're like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that like for postpartum moms, getting the calf raises in is super important. And that's really interesting to me, because they're not your quads, they're not your glutes, they're not these big muscles that are the powerhouses that people talk about. They're not the ones that are the problem when we're trying to pull on our jeans. But the activities of daily living as a mom, picking up your kid, putting them down, walking safely without tripping. We haven't even talked about how high of a risk you have for falling, because your joints are still loose. You're still acclimating to this new body, and now you're holding your human, and you're pushing a stroller, and you're
exhausted all the time. Exhausted.
Yeah, these things,
and your center of gravity changes so dramatically, because your center, you have this huge belly, and then all of a sudden you lose like 15 pounds in a day. So your center of gravity, like, who knows where your center of gravity is?
Who knows? So this is really interesting food for thought. And I don't know about you, but I rarely see calf exercises prescribed in classical like workouts. Again, I go back to Pinterest, because it's the first thing you Google it and it shows up on Pinterest, and there's a infographic of like 12 exercises for postpartum moms, or get the baby body back, or what the hell ever. Calf raises aren't there. Primal push-ups aren't there. Not usually. And it doesn't start with breathing, because that's not sexy. This isn't the sexy stuff that in your brain you're like, if I do a bunch of these, I'm going to look good in a bathing suit. or I'm going to fit in my clothes again. And I'm not saying that's where everybody's at with their goals, but I can't tell you how many moms who have had this conversation with me when I ask what their goals are. They start the sentence with, I know I shouldn't say this, or I shouldn't feel this way, but I want to look good in my clothes again. And that hurts not to like take their pain, but like I hear that so much because they feel like they don't deserve, or that it's too vain to want to feel good in their clothes again. But what it sounds like to me is that they want to just feel like themselves again. And you have your clothes that you like. I cried when I put my jeans back on and they actually buttoned, because it just felt good. Like, okay, I did all this work and I got, my body got wrecked in a way that I did not expect. And then I just slid those pants on the one day, months, we're talking months later, and it buttoned. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know if I was going to be able to be here again. Yeah. And I think moms deserve that feeling.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I do too. And I mean, I think like any, like you said at the beginning with like the advertising and stuff, like anything that floats your boat, go for it. Like if it's spinning, if it's running, if it's doing 700,000 squats, they have that new machine now that just does squats. Like you just hold on to it and squat for like 15 minutes. Cool. If it gets you moving and you feel good, amazing. Like go for it, because I think you're right. Like everyone deserves that feeling. And these are just like some things that I found, like based on my clinical experience, based on my training and all my continuing education, like these things set you up really nicely for function, right? Like, and then once you have a nice foundation, like, yeah, go do your 2-minute planks, do 6,000 squats, like go for it. Or maybe this is enough and it like gets you back to your function and you feel good and that's all you need. Cool. Like that's great. But yeah, walking is like part of the reason that I think I end up prescribing the heel raises so often is that walking is often like the only piece that a new mom will find in her day. Like, because the kid is contained and safe and like everything's good and you can just be calm pushing a stroller or with a carrier. And so they end up walking a lot. Sorry. So heel raises. The end.
I was literally talking to a mom who was a former client this morning about how she's been that's what she's been doing. She's been strapping the baby in and walking, and she said she's really excited to get back to other exercises. But I was telling her, like, that's a great freaking starting point, and it's amazing, and it's that extra bonding time with your baby. So this is the difference that we're wrapping up here, but I wanted to explain the difference between a personal trainer or something like a Peloton, or a like Beachbody, one of those videos or whatever that you opt into. There's a difference between those things that you buy and a coach. And I was thinking about this on the way to my doctor's appointment this morning. The personal trainer, the Peloton, these are all awesome tools. If you're able to get yourself to push play on the video, to get onto the Peloton and to do those exercises, that is amazing. And that's our goal. Our goal is, everyone wants to be able to feel motivated enough to get on that equipment. But a coach is the kind of person that helps motivate you or helps you understand the benefits of doing this exercise and gets you from the couch to whatever that piece of exercise equipment is. And they make sure that once you get there, that what you're doing is A, working towards the goals that you actually have, and B, is keeping you safe and not making or exacerbating any of the conditions that you might show up with. So that's what I do. That's what Helene does. We've been trainers before. We prescribe exercises, but beyond that, in programs like Strong as a Mother, we really, really dive deep into understanding why you are the way you are, why it feels like a barrier to get to these things. Because what do we always hear, Helene? I know what I should be doing. I know what I should be eating, but I don't. We answer those questions with you. Why? Okay, what can we do instead? And that's the difference between hiring a coach and buying a Peloton, because I have no less than 3 clients who have Pelotons. They do that. They do that thing. I don't feel offended. I don't need them to do my workouts. I need them to do the workouts that they can consistently show up for. And that's the work
that they're going to enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I think you just had a post where you talked about that, where, you know, they went from kind of dreading the workouts and feeling like they had to do them to feeling fired up and excited and capable. Yeah. And that makes it enjoyable, which makes you want to do it more, which makes you, you know, feel more capable, which makes you, and it becomes a positive reinforcement cycle.
Yes. And that's, yeah, at the end of the day, people show up and they hate exercise, but they're willing to do it. But someday they get to the point where they're like, oh,
we seduce them to our side of things.
Yeah. Come on to our side, the positive side. We like what we do. I don't do a lot. So for me, I don't hate any of the exercise I do. I either love it because I enjoy rock climbing or surfing or running or whatever, or I am neutral about it. It's just, this is the exercise I have to do today so that, you know, my physical therapist prescribed it to me, or this is working towards being better at rock climbing, but I'm never negative about it. Being neutral is okay. Being happy about it is the goal. Those two things are the ultimate goal. But like Alexis was, which was the post we just did, you're talking about, she started with I hate exercise and never had a good relationship with exercise in her life. That was similar to how I grew up. But it's possible. And if you believe that it's possible to start changing your belief in your relationship with exercise, that's the kind of stuff the coaching does for you. Because the Peloton, it might help change your emotional response. You're like, oh yeah, that was a great workout. I was really happy, but it doesn't help you undo the habits that got you to where you're at now. That's the kind of stuff that we work on. So the announcement that I've been taking forever to get to is that enrollment for the next Strong as a Mother Winter Edition coaching program opens on Black Friday, that time of year where we used to go to Target at 4 a.m. to buy our husband a television that cost $400. I did that once. But the enrollment's going to open on Black Friday, and I don't discount my coaching ever because I'm not a television. I'm not going to offer a discount, but this one time of year, I am adding bonuses to online coaching. So you are getting way more if you sign up for this group, this little cohort, and join our little gang of moms who are all working towards living a healthier lifestyle without fad diets, without restricting anything, and really want to learn to understand what a healthy relationship with exercise and food looks like. You'd be working with me, you'd be working with Coach Helene and our pregnant Coach Erica, the nutritionist. So, Helene, anything that you want to add that you're excited about or that they should know about the way coaching works?
I'm always excited when we start a new round of folks and people are excited about starting, about trying something new, about, you know, like, and a little bit nervous, and then we get to have our kickoff phone calls together and really talk through, like, what's it going to look like and how are we going to make everything safe and approachable for you. And I'm always very excited about enrollment. That was not particularly articulate. I apologize.
No, I'm really happy to hear you're excited about it too, because I know a lot of people come in and they're like, I've tried everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. And I encourage them to, like, try this one more thing. Just try one more, because this program is designed to be the last program you ever need. My goal is for you to leave it. My goal is for you to matriculate out, whether it's 12 weeks or 6 months or a year, however long it takes. My goal is for you not to need me and Helene and Erica anymore. We are helping teach you guys the life skills that you need to live a healthy life with letting it feel effortless the way that we do now, because we know how valuable it is to not have to stress or use brain cells thinking about healthy dinners every night, or think about what exercise is going to make me actually feel better and not worse. And that's why we do this hard but awesome work with everybody.
Yes.
So thanks for everybody for sticking. Thanks for sticking around and listening to this. I hope you guys got some value out of it. The exercises that we talked about are similar to the ones that we would prescribe in your coaching program. They are all different based on what your conversation with Helene and with me is, based on what your goals are, where you're at in your postpartum journey. And that's what's really special about it. But we still do make sure that we get the parts of your body that we believe are super important, and we make it approachable, easy. And yeah, we're kind of fun. We're kind of fun to hang out with, I think. So if you have questions, if you have comments, throw them in the comments section. Message me if you want to hear more about the coaching program. Just message, tell me more. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out in the group. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. And if you're around tomorrow at 10:30, I'm also going to be going live with Coach Erica, the nutritionist, about our happy, healthy holiday mindset. So that we're going to go a little more into the nutrition side of things to make sure that you can actually enjoy your holiday season and not feel guilty or dreadful or stressed or whatever the typical feelings are. We're going to help you have like a really amazeballs holiday season.
Nice.
So thanks, Helene, for popping in. Always a delight to share our nerd knowledge. And I can't wait to talk with you again and to introduce you to our newest group of mamas. So in the meantime, everyone, stay strong, stay caffeinated, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the group. Have a great day, everyone.